want to do a master's, right? Some sectors, if you want to excel in your profession, don't necessarily require a master's. Some do. If you want to be in academia, you require a master's to be able to do a PhD. If, say, for example, you're in a sector that's more skills-based, maybe you need to do certificates, maybe you need to do courses. You don't need a degree particularly, right? Maybe you just want to make more money in your job. All reasons are valid, but you need to know why you want to do it. And if you don't know why you want to do a master's, right, take some time, deliberate. I would say speak to other people in your sector. If if in your bachelor's right now, speak to your professors. If you're working right now, you're thinking about a master's, speak to the seniors in your professors. Think about your life maybe 5-10 years from now, and find someone who embodies that life, who looks like they're living the sort of life that career-wise, academia-wise, you may want to do. And reach out to them, speak to them, reach out to them on LinkedIn. There's lots of options to do that. So I would recommend know very clearly why you want to do a master's. And then, of course, ask yourself what kind of programs you want to study, right? If you're interested in medicine and health, for example, and you think मेरे पास MBBS नहीं है या मुझे नहीं करना for some reason, right? You don't want to do medicine per se. There's a lot of other things you can do, right? You can do global health, you can do public health, you can do epidemiology. There's a lot of programs out there for you. So explore the university's websites, go on all of those websites, explore the programs, look at what sort of courses they offer, look up their alumni on LinkedIn, do as much research as you can to understand what sort of a program you want to study in the future. Then what do you want to do immediately after your master's? Do you want to stay in the country that you're going for? If, say, for example, you want to do a master's abroad, क्या आप उसी कंट्री में रहना चाहते हैं, आप वहीं पे जॉब करना चाहते हैं, क्या आप पाकिस्तान वापस आना चाहते हैं? If you don't want to come back to Pakistan, I would say right now Fulbright is not for you. If you think those 2 years pass quickly, if you think you can always go back easily, it's not that simple. So if you're 100% sure that you don't want to come back for whatever reason after your master's, then Fulbright is not right for you. But if you're sure that this is what you want to do, that you want to come back, you have a reason to come back, a justifiable reason, family, career, whatever, then Fulbright might be a good pick for you. And then obviously a very important part of Fulbright is, think about the visa process, the university application process, being able to work in the country that you go to. A very key part of Fulbright is that you have one application for the whole thing. You send that application, it's free. Uske baad, you don't have to apply to a university. You don't even have to worry about your visa process. They help you take care of the whole thing. It simplifies everything. So just one application where you have to work extremely hard. And after that, everything is easy. So if you don't want to send 10 applications and pay $100 for each of them, then maybe Fulbright is good for you. So these are some of the questions maybe you want to think about before you move on to even considering the application. Right, then what does the application itself look like? And host, feel free to stop me if I'm going too fast. So the most important, I think, thing for you would be this website right here. This is what it looks like. I would recommend that you go through the website very thoroughly. This is after you've decided you want to do a Fulbright, right? You go through the website, it has everything. It has the eligibility requirement, it has what documents you need, it has guidance on what's the best way to prepare. So those are the things, that information that you can find outside already. You can find it on this website, you can find other links. So I'll try my best to focus on things that don't exist in this website, information that they don't necessarily tell you. Just a quick overview of what sort of things you need for the application. Your main documentation, you need your ID, you need to have a passport, you need to have your transcripts, they need to be attested by HEC, you need a domicile. Some cases, you may require your birth certificate, BAE form. I put vaccinations there. You don't need it at the application stage, but if you have vaccination records, keep them. They're good for later. You don't want to rush baad mein. These are all sort of the basic documentations that you should have, your university transcripts. If you're thinking about applying try to get those transcripts today, get the process started. Then the tests, which is GRE. It's a requirement of the application, and TOEFL is something that's you may be required to give it later or you may not. So it's a choice if you want to give your TOEFL with the application or after. But GRE is a requirement. Those scores are required, and so there are no fixed scores that determine कि आप ये cut off है और इसके बाद आपको मिलेगा या नहीं मिलेगा. Obviously, there's a general understanding. But say, for example, आप एक social science program में apply कर रहे हैं, then maybe your verbal scores are more important than your math score, right? If you're applying for like a physics program, maybe they don't give that much weightage to your verbal scores. So it actually differs. You don't have to be perfect as long as your overall application matches what they're looking for. Then the essays, obviously. This is something that can make or break your application, which includes your personal essay and then a research essay or, purpose of study. These are just, if you think about it, they're just 2 essays, easy to nail. But if you really think about it, this is the only information where they actually hear from you. This is the point of the application where you have a voice. This is where you can tell your story. This is where you can talk about your skills in a way where your transcripts don't talk, right? Maybe you want to study public health and your transcript doesn't have any courses on public health or anything related, right? The essay is the opportunity for you to tell them why you want to study this, why you're a good match. Let's focus a little bit on, say, the personal essay. So the personal essay is more about your own personal story, right? But that doesn't mean you talk about who you are, what you like, where you were born. They want to understand you as a person, where you started, where you are right now, where do you want to go in the future? All of it in relation to the program you want to study. So for example, I really wanted to study international development. And in my personal essay, I spoke about, my journey when I was young in the NGO sector. I spoke about my vision for creating something greater in the international aid space. I spoke about what I want to do 5 years from now. I wanted to create more research on the global south. So this gives you an opportunity to explain this is your personal interest. So there's an affiliation with it, right? If you care about something personally, चाहे वो आपका career हो या आपके academics हो, अगर उसमें एक personal interest है, then you're going to work harder for it. That's an easy association, right? Then you want to show कि आपके life experiences, how do they give you the skills other than your school, right? How do they give you the skills to adapt in a new country? How do they give you the skills to study what you want to study? And then most importantly, you want to talk about the future as well. You don't want to say, मुझे ये आता है, मैंने ये किया है, that's why I'm a good fit. A lot of these scholarships, the way that they work is that they want to be able to show you in their notable alumni. They want to see 10, 15, 20 years from now, will this person get somewhere? So you have to show a vision that goes far, but it's still achievable. You don't want to say, I want to become president of Pakistan, but you want to do something more meaningful. You don't want to say, I want to work in an NGO. That's fairly lower level. You don't need a master's to do that. So think of something that's realistic, but something that might put you in their notable alumni list. That's what they're looking for. And then the research essay. This is where you talk about sort of particularly your field of interest. And, we spoke about earlier, why do you want to do your master's? And then what program you want to study. Here they want to see, do you have a basic foundation of what you want to study? If you want to study public health, but you've done accounting your whole life, without a transition, something that allows your skill to transfer to that program, you most probably won't get it. So they want to see if you want to study a topic deeper, which is what you do in a master's, do you have the foundational skills? One thing that's very, very important for US universities, and not necessarily for Europe or the UK, for example, is how moldable are you? A lot of these universities, masters and PhD, they offer very foundational courses as well. So they want to see you have a direction, आपको आपका program पता है, आपको पता है आप किस particular topic में research करेंगे, not specifically, but that you're open-minded, that you're open to understanding the topic more, that you're open to learning from them, learning from your mentors. They're looking for some flexibility as opposed to, programs in the UK where they expect you to just come and be able to start the research immediately. In the US, they have that space where they want you to show flexibility. And that's something you need to reflect in your research essay. Obviously, there's tons of advice online on how to structure them. I believe you're all capable of finding that, but if needed, I can share some links at the end as well. And then your resume or your CV, which is, once again, you have the opportunity to show the things that you've done, right? You don't want to talk about maybe high school that much, maybe you want to talk about your undergrad more. You want to talk about co-curricular activities. You want to talk about not necessarily say that, which is also important, right? But say you've done some community service, you've done some volunteer work, right? If you haven't, maybe start now. All of these little things matter. Your application is sort of a culmination of all four of these things, not one. So if you have a low GPA, for example, or if you have a high GRE to match that, or say if you don't have maybe really great academic skills for whatever reason, right? Make it your personal essay, your research essay, and your resume highlight that you're very, very sort of involved in the community, that you have roots in this country, right? That you worked with NGOs, or say, for example, you worked in your community, yeah, you do things outside of your university. That's something that then creates a holistic application. So there's no one thing in this application that you have to be perfect in. You need a well-rounded mix of all of these. So don't really worry if grades don't always match. There is obviously a cutoff, but sometimes some people may not have the grades, but they have the drive, they have the vision, and that's something that matters in this application as well. Right. Just going to quickly go over the facts, the timeline, which is a very important part of this whole thing, of course. So applications usually open around November, December. By March is usually when they close, and June, July is when you have your, they'll ask you for additional documentation, for example, or you might get your answer, you might get selected, you might get shortlisted, then for the interview. So June, July, the summer is usually when that happens. August, September is when you sort of prepare for your departure. You have your pre-departure orientations, different workshops. September, October is usually when most people sort of actually leave for the degree. Now let's sort of look at it backwards. This period right here between, say, June, August, sometimes even April, is when your visa process starts, right? That's when you have to have the documentations. They guide you through the whole process, but like I said, right, it helps agar aapke paas already documentation hai, your passport is ready to go. If you need to renew your passport, if you need to make a new one, for example, all of these things, they will make your process smoother. And then this part right here is your application period, which is extremely critical, extremely important, right? But I want you to sort of think of it in a way that this is not when you're writing the application. This is when you're compiling the application. This here is when you're actually writing the application, right? Before the application is open is when you want to start preparing, right? Fulbright is a program that's been running for many years, which means that most people already know what the application requires, which means you have plenty of time to do your GRE. You have plenty of time to ask your professor for references. You have plenty of time to sort of prepare for it. All of those things you want to do before the application actually opens. So when the application period opens, you're not panicking, you're not changing your mind in the last minute. You want to have it all refined before you even get to the portal. Right. So what does a Fulbright experience actually look like, right? What's going to happen is that when you sort of start, this is what the graph is going to look like when you get there. It's going to start with a lot of initial excitement. You'll be with maybe 100 other Fulbrighters. Pakistan has the largest Fulbright program. You'll be very excited. So you're at your highest right now, right? When you get on that plane, you get to a new place, your emotions sort of come down, and now you're in a culture shock, right? As much as we've traveled, as much as we've experienced things, as much as exposure we have to international culture in Pakistan, the actual experience of living in a new country where nobody speaks your language, when everybody looks differently and everybody looks at you differently, that culture shock sort of brings you down a little bit right now. It's very important in this moment of slump that you sort of recover from it, right? You work on adjustment. You go to classes. Most universities will have a detailed orientation where you'll find clubs, where you'll find community, you'll find professors, you'll meet other classmates. And this is when sort of the down is slowly going up. You're settling in, you're finding your apartments, Fulbright sort of provides a small adjustment or settlement stipend. And so that's going to help you sort of adjust in the initial period to then eventually, hopefully, you get to thrive, right? That's a plateau that moves slowly. It's not very manic in that regard, but that's the part when your classes have started, you've adjusted, you know, okay, grocery kahan se leni hai, train ka schedule kya hai, all of these little things. Once you have that figured out, can take anywhere between 2 weeks to 2 months to even 6 months, right? Depending on the kind of person you are. So to know how the experience will look like this is going to be very helpful for you. Okay, the excitement that you go with doesn't always last after you land. And that's okay. That's a completely normal emotion. So what do you get from the Fulbright program, right? What do you get from your experience once you're there? Mentorship, of course. They have some of the brightest minds in the United States. Given the state of the world, it's still true, right? You'll have professors that are absolutely brilliant, that are experienced in matters of the world, and this is where you sort of look to them for mentorship. You have some of the world's earliest education systems, right? The most developed education systems. Their classrooms, the curriculum, the way that your class is going to flow, the way that you get to interact with not only your classmates, practitioners, you know, depending on your program. For example, my program was very, very practitioner-based, and what our professors did that every few weeks we'd get to interact with someone who's doing a job that maybe in 5 years we will be doing, right? And so that gives you a glimpse of the whole picture, your classroom, what is going to be outside of the classroom. All of these things you only get when you have a very, very sophisticated education system, which the US does offer. And then a community of like-minded people, right? This is not just the Fulbright community. Depending on where you go, you could go to a small town, you could go to, you know, a big city like New York, for example. I went to a relatively smaller community, so I only had 4 other Fulbrighters with me, but I had a big community of international friends, right? These are people from your country, from other countries, and meeting them is sort of going to broaden your horizon, you know, your own understanding of not just your discipline, but of sort of a way of living, right? You'll be exposed to different ways of living, different ideas. And that's part of the whole experience, right? That's part of what makes your education better. But to be able to sort of benefit from all of these factors, you need to make sure that you meet all your professors, right? It's summer, you know, okay, you have your position in a university fixed, you have your visa. I would recommend start writing to your professors. Email the professors in your department. Some will be very open. They'll reply to you. They'll say, yes, I do have a job for you if you're looking for a job. Or they'll show interest in your research. By the time you get there, there's already someone you know. Some might not respond so well, but that's all right. You know, you still should try and reach out to all of them. You need to, it's very helpful to attend all and any events in your department, sometimes even in your university, right? Not only is it a great place for you to sort of meet people, network, meet other professors, learn about maybe the research that's coming out in your field. If you're an international student, the stipend is not the best, right? You want any event where you can get food. I know that a lot of me and my friends would go to a lot of free events just because they would have really good food. So why waste that? And then work if you can. Fulbright's sort of conditions on working is a little bit variable. It's changed in the last couple of years of whether or not you can work, what kind of work you can do, whether or not you can keep your stipend. If that's a question any of you have, you know, ask it later in the Q&A session and I can speak more about working as a Fulbrighter. But if you can, and if you're able to, I would recommend that you should work internships and try to step outside of your comfort zone. You know, it's very tempting to stay within, say, the Pakistani community, but I would recommend that you meet other people, right? You step outside of your own community. If you're in a new country that's offering new experiences, it's only fair that you experience all of them, right? That you try new things, that you go to conferences, maybe something that you haven't done before. Maybe you try a new food or cuisine that you haven't tried before. These are all part of the experience, right? Going abroad to a different university. The point of it is not just, oh, okay, you know, it's a foreign degree, it's amazing. The point of it is also the experience, right? And that teaches you things. Even trying, you know, cuisine of a new country, that's something that teaches you more about life. And that, I think that's important to fulfill your entire experience. Right. A little bit about after the Fulbright, right? What happens when you come back? And apart from the reverse culture shock, which is something you will get, right? You spend 2 years, 1 year, maybe 3 year in a country, you adjust to it, you come back, you get a reverse culture shock. But there are sort of ways where you can work around it. When you come back, you have a fully paid for master's or PhD degree, right? It's a valuable degree. It's not right to quantify academic degrees like that, but unfortunately, we live in a world where we do quantify them, right? It is transaction. And at the end of your experience, you have a very valuable degree that you can really, really leverage in a lot of situations. You have international experience, not just for the USA, for example. If you go to Fulbright, you do get the opportunity to visit other countries in the region as well. And that experience really, really is something that a lot of recruiters value a lot. So you come back, you want to work in an organization that's, say, a multinational, they would prefer someone that has international experience. And then you have the alumni community, right? I think the Fulbright or United States education alumni community is one of the most widespread in Pakistan. Anywhere you go, you meet your fellow Fulbrighters, not just people in your batch, right? Say you go to interview somewhere and one of the persons on the panel is also a Fulbrighter, right? That helps you build that sort of instant connection with that person. That alumni community is where you find support, it's where you find resources, sometimes it's where you find jobs. The community is extremely valuable, and some of Pakistan's brightest minds are in that community. So you're going to be part of it, and you'll be able to leverage that being part of the Fulbright Scholars experience. Right. These are just some of the pictures from my time in the US. As you can see, I did a mix of academic, non-academic activities. I did some sort of activities after I was back as well, participating, in the Fulbright conferences. I participated in some workshops. They have a lot of activities. I would say they have sort of declined since the USA thing, but it still offers a lot to do during your program, after your program. There's a lot of things that you can participate in within the community. Right, I think that is all. If we have any questions, I'm open to them. If you want me to go back to any of the slides, I'm open to those as well. Back to you, host. Oh no, I just saw that the voice is not coming. Should I repeat something?
If anyone has a question, you may ask now.
And secondly, Google form is shared in the chat box. Participants are advised to fill the form for e-certificates.
Aisha, I have a question that what CGPA is required for applying this scholarship?
Right, Laiba, thank you for the question. Like I said, Fulbright की कोई fixed CGPA requirement नहीं होती, even if you go to their website, because they want to encourage people with a diverse portfolio. If you have a CGPA that's over 2.5, 3, even in the between 3 and 4, you have a very good chance. But if you have a CGPA that's less, right, लेकिन आपने और बहुत सारी चीजें की है, आपने क्लब्स में पार्टिसिपेट किया, आपने वॉलंटियर किया है, आप किसी के केयरर रहे हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल आपकी फैमिली में कोई किसी की तबीयत ठीक नहीं है एंड यू बीन अ केयरर फॉर देम, all of these things matter. So I think you shouldn't take a fixed CGPA as an answer. It's a holistic experience.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I think Zainab has a question.
Yes,
What
I
types of
read it.
job can you do with our study? Right, should I go ahead and answer?
Yes.
Right. So for Fulbright, there are two types of visas when you want to study in the US. The F1 visa and the J1 visa. The F1 visa is the international student visa, which if you apply outside of Fulbright, आप वैसे ही apply करते हो, तो that's the visa you're on. उसमें when you कोई भी on campus job हो आप कर सकते हो. You can work a maximum of 20 hours during your studies. And then जो आपकी breaks होती है दरमियान में summer break, winter break, you can work 40 hours of this, right? आप campus के अंदर जितनी भी jobs हैं आप कर सकते हो. This is for the F1 visa. For the J1 visa, which is the exchange visa, अगर आप Fulbright पे जा रहे हो तो that's the visa that you have. उसमें you don't have permission to do jobs unless you ask your Fulbright advisor. If you need a job, you have to message your Fulbright advisor, you have to fill out an application form, and you have to justify that ये job आपकी degree से related है. तो अगर मेरी जो friends हैं जो F1 visa पे थी, they could work in the university cafeteria, वो they could work those jobs. I couldn't. I could only work jobs जैसे research assistant, something that contributes to my degree. Or once you apply to a job, then there's a whole discussion and application on whether you can get paid or not. You get a stipend from Fulbright, or वो stipend differ करती है for every state. If you get a job, previously the policy used to be if you get a job, उसमें however much you make, वो आपके stipend से उतनी amount minus हो जाती है. Now I think they're changing the policy where if you get a job, you get to keep around $500-600, and the rest they minus from the stipend, unless you can justify a reason. I hope that answers your question. Okay, I'm just going to
Yes.
go along and answer the rest of the questions, if that's okay.
Next question is from Nadia. Please share the website link from where we apply if available. Okay.
I can share the link right now in the chat.
Okay.
The Fulbright scholarship, which is complete study coverage for master's and PhD, is only available for MS and PhD. If you're currently in your bachelor's and you still want to do something, Fulbright has a U-Grad application, which is for undergrad, but you have to be enrolled in your bachelor's. उसमें सिर्फ एक semester के लिए वो एक exchange program है. That's a completely different application, or that's a separate topic. So if you want, I can share some links for that. लेकिन Fulbright doesn't cover a fully funded undergrad degree, only masters and PhDs. And there's also one for experienced professionals, but not for undergrad.
Okay, next question is from Noreen. Is this scholarship for inter students? और अच्छा ओके ये हो गया है. और किसी का कोई क्वेश्चन है तो काइंडली पूछिए अपना क्वेश्चन में.
While we get more questions, एक general disclaimer. अगर आप मास्टर्स, बैचलर्स, PhD आप बाय जान पढ़ना चाह रहे हैं, राइट? अगर आपकी मेन आपका क्राइटेरिया है कि मैं पाकिस्तान से बाय पढ़ना चाह रहा हूँ किसी प्रेस्टिजियस यूनिवर्सिटी में, देन आई वुड से कि फुलब्राइट को सिर्फ एक ऑप्शन रखें. USAID की फंडिंग काफी डिक्रीज हुई है, उससे फुलब्राइट का जो ये ईयर है वो उस तरह अफेक्ट नहीं हुआ बिकॉज वो फंडिंग वाज ऑलरेडी ईयरमार्क्ड. लेकिन ओवर द नेक्स्ट 4-5 years we don't know कि क्या हो सकता है, स्पेशली फॉर द US. उसकी इमिग्रेशन रिक्वायरमेंट चेंज हो रही हैं. आई वुड रिकमेंड कि आप UK, US, even Asian options explore करें. There's some really good universities in Europe. There's some really good universities in Japan. So think about those as well. Do you guide me about how to approach a university professor for research scholarship? Right. So depends on masters या PhD या undergrad के लिए उन्हें approach कर रहे हैं. So the best way would be कि you go to the university's website and you look at their faculty list. You look at their faculty list. आपको हर professor का नाम, उनकी जो research publications है, उनकी expertise, वो सारी वहाँ पे आ रही होती है. You click on which professor and you see आपके काम से, आपके interest से, आपके research से सबसे ज़्यादा कौन मैच करता है? Shortlist 4 or 5 people in every university, right? कुछ universities में आपके साथ आपके research matching professors होंगे, कुछ में नहीं होंगे. Try to write to as many of them possible. Most of these universities, उनका email given होता है. अगर email given नहीं, तो you can copy that name, you can put it on LinkedIn, and you can write them a message. You can, introduce yourself, and then most importantly, you can say, I'm looking to apply to this university. Yeah, I have this research. I'm interested in the work you're doing. आप जो कर रहे हो, connected to the work that they are doing, and then you can ask them for it. Some of them will reply. Some of them might not reply. You can send them an email. अगर email नहीं है, तो find them on LinkedIn. There's just a lot of different ways you can go about this. Hassan's question about community services. Can you expand a little bit on that? What communities? Oh, so you mean like for your experience, for your application? Am I right? Okay, I'll come back to the question on community services. Let me just finish the last question. Yes, a lot of professors will ignore cold emails. It's important that you have a good reason for emailing them, right? Why are you emailing them? Do you want research funding? Do you want guidance on application? Do you need mentorship, right? Depending on if you have a good reason. अगर आप किसी प्रोफेसर को ईमेल कर रहे हो कि हेल्प मी, मुझे समझ नहीं आ रही, मैं क्या करूं मास्टर्स में, दे आर नॉट गोइंग टू हेल्प यू, राइट? व्हाई शुड दे हेल्प यू? इफ यू मैसेज अ प्रोफेसर सेइंग कि आई वांट टू, वो जिस यूनी में काम कर रहे हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ फ्लोरिडा, फॉर एग्जांपल, लाइक आई वांट टू अप्लाई टू द यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ फ्लोरिडा, मैं इसमें मास्टर्स करना चाह रहा हूँ, मैं इस पे ऑलरेडी इस सेक्शन में रिसर्च कर चुका हूँ, दैट रिसर्च इज कनेक्टेड टू द रिसर्च यू आर डूइंग. So try to get their interest, right? Why should they care about it? Your email. A lot of emails. Every email needs to be connected with the work that they are. You will get ignored by a lot of emails like that. That's completely okay. Don't feel it's okay. इसमें कोई शर्म वाली बात नहीं है. जितने emails आप भेज सकते हो, continue to do that. Right. Yes. Community services. So for Islamabad, for example, if I speak, right, you can look at what NGOs are working, right? Say if your expertise is public health, देखो कि hospital is one, right, in Pakistan. कौन सी ऐसी organizations हैं, NGOs हैं, जो volunteers accept करती हैं? Give them a call, write them an email, go to their office and be like, hey, I'm interested in volunteering with you. I'm interested in doing an internship position with you, for example. Try to do those kind of things, those experiences where you are seen as giving back to your community, for example, right? So if you live in Islamabad, there's a landfill, there's an NGO that's working to clear that landfill, you volunteer with them. What you're doing is you're giving your time for free to your community, and that's why it matters. I hope those answer your questions.
अगर किसी का कोई क्वेश्चन रहता है तो कर लें.
आई थिंक क्लियर हो गए हैं क्वेश्चंस. In
I
closing,
mean, you
I
can
would
share
like
the link. Yeah, sorry. I just was saying
Okay.
कि if you want to share my LinkedIn, किसी को बाद में question आए, you can send me a question. I can't review your essays, unfortunately, but I can help with questions if you have. Yeah, sorry, Aisha, go ahead.
Okay. In closing, I would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to our guest speaker for sharing her immense knowledge and experience with us. Your journey and insights have truly inspired us and given us hope that international opportunities are achievable with the right strategy. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to join us today. We also extend our thanks to the team behind this session. With sincere appreciation, we conclude today's enlightening webinar. Until we meet again, may you stay safe and successful. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you.